Yeah, it's part of the initiation into adulthood, isn't it? Going away and being with other young people and escaping the parents and having fun and getting to make choices yourself and
Mm,
yeah, it's always a great part of growing up. It's a
mhm.
fun time, and you appreciate you appreciate going away and you appreciate coming back. I think as well.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes, of course.
yeah.
Mm.
Less is more. It's that contradiction. Less is more because when you have less time with people, you appreciate them more usually.
Mm.
So yeah, it's yeah. One of the One of the reasons why I am where I am right now is that I wanted my children to spend time with their grandparents because I think that
Mhm.
those older generation and younger generation connections are are interesting family dynamics. I
Mm.
don't think it's not all good or all bad. It just is what it is. But I still think it's very important because there's
Mm.
a lot of focus in the modern world on individuality and disconnected family, where families just don't spend a lot of time together.
Mm.
And uh, I like the older system still that you can still see in Slovakia, where you find three generations of the family close together, or sometimes even in one house. I
Mm.
know that it's
Once, yeah.
Yeah, I know that it's difficult to live in that kind of situation,
Mhm.
but I think that there's there's some human element to it which is very important, where where you learn a lot from doing that. I think you learn more from doing that than you do from just saying I don't want anything to do with my family at all.
Mm.
It's a very good mirror of a person's communication skills. If people want to spend time with them or not. If I don't think there should be this automatic respect. I think that respect and trust is something you earn over time, and and as a result, a lot of older people think that younger people should automatically listen to them. But I think it's the
Mhm.
job of older people to make the communication interesting. I mean, if you
Mm.
have a life full of experience and a life that's worthwhile, you should at least have some basic communication skills. And the basic communication skills should be not to dictate to people
Mm.
all the time what they should do, but to provide counseling and mentoring. So the classic example is that the in a good educational relationship, the student always searches for the master.
Mm.
Everyone understands who the master is and who the student is, but the master does not force the student to learn
Mm.
anything at all. Um, the master says, I'm here if you need me, and the student will come for advice and counseling when
Mm.
the time is the right time. And if you look at the Oriental methods of education in the past, a lot of it was like that. That
Mhm.
the elder people in society were respected not because they knew everything, but because they knew that they had experience and they could share their experience and they could use that to help teach other people. I'm not sure that that works so much in Western culture, but I think in general that's the way that it should be. Too many people expect too much automatically. They expect to be respected automatically. Respect is something you earn. People expect to be trusted automatically. Trust is something you earn. The truth is something you earn. You don't just tell anybody everything about you. You have to build up trust. You have to build up a relationship that works in business as well.
Mm.
Yeah. That I'm not just going to tell any random person everything, because you don't know where the information is going to end. You don't know if someone's going to use the information against you in some way, and that's a learning process as well. So the way that information is communicated through families and in relationships is very important. One of the things that people never get taught, right? One of the reasons that successful families are very successful, and sometimes success is not an individual thing. Sometimes it's a family thing. Some families are successful where, for example, all the children in the family are successful, or all the extended people in the family are successful. And one of the reasons for this is something called family council that we don't hear a lot about. But more successful families are basically run like businesses, where people get together and decide, where the more experienced and knowledgeable people get together and decide how they can best help the other people in the family. And they get together and they make decisions. Now, some of these decisions might be about the kinds of relationships that people should or should not have, who is good for who and who is bad for who. But young people like to go their own way, but you can't make the right choices without some good level of guidance in that. It doesn't mean everything should be dictated, but it does mean that that the obvious should be pointed out, that some things are not going to have a good result, but feel free to go and experience that, right? And there's something that I learned a while ago. I heard a speech by a social philosopher, and he was talking about how when he grew up there was very little moral guidance for people, and like everything was okay. The basic philosophy was everything is okay because everyone is different, and that's not good. You need some set of rules. That's why religion is important. You need a set of rules that you can follow so that you can know if you're on the right path or the wrong path. A very simple example of this is it's never right to do something wrong to get something right. The people always believe there's a short road, there's a shortcut. You know, think smart or whatever. There's no easy way or fast way to do anything correctly. It takes 20 years to become 20 years old. You can't do it faster. Because if you try to be 20 when you're 15, it's too soon. And if you try to be 20 when you're 30, it's too late. So that the balance is difficult. And I learned about family councils a few years ago, and it makes perfect sense to me that the more intelligent people in the family who have more experience get together and they talk about everybody else, and they talk about how they can best support everybody. You see it in church communities. It's part of what church communities do. The people should get together and think about how they can help each other and what is the best way for people to develop.
Yes, trust is important.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it fits on the scale. I don't think you can. If you don't have trust, then you are forever looking over your shoulder. But then trust, if you trust too much, you become completely dependent upon other people. What I'm talking about is more successful families and more successful networks. Because if you look at the way that the rich families or the super rich families organize themselves, it's very much about providing supportive, nurturing environments for the family. And if we're not coming from a background of that, obviously we're not going to take advice or counseling, because we we don't take counseling from anybody who's on a lower sort of self-development or psychological level than what we're on. Um, well, we can understand why people are the way that they are, but we need to only take advice from people who know more than us about a
Mm.
specific or particular topic. Now, there it's got to be selective. So, for example, you might want to go to your mother and get advice about cooking or something, but you might not want to take advice about how to dress or human
Or
relationships or
business,
something.
yes,
Or
yes,
business. Or
yes.
business. Yeah, that's a classic example. There's
Mm.
there's a lot of people with no experience in business that always want to tell other people what to do. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. At least at least I experience it almost everywhere that everybody is telling other people what the best thing is to do. And I'm not sure that anybody really knows what the best thing is to do. I think there's just trying different things and seeing what the outcome is of it. Obviously, if you have more experience, then you have to listen to someone who has more experience. And also, again, a lot of people are not listening. They want to dictate and tell other people what to do. And how do you know that you can take advice from someone? You can take advice from someone if they listen to you first. If they listen to you first. So here's my here's my problem with how people communicate. Um, let's say there's three people in a situation, A, B, and C, and let's say that uh, I am person B in the situation in the middle, and two other people are communicating about me. Um, you don't know any of the truth about a situation unless you communicate with everybody and learn from everybody in the situation about everything that is going on. And so in my life, a lot of people want to tell me what to do, but no one has ever asked me about my own experience. No one's ever asked me.
Mm-hmm.
No one's asked me, why did you do that? Or what did you learn from that experience? Or what were your thought processes? Or how did you plan it? Or no one's ever asked me. People have just said, you should do this. And no one's
Mm-hmm.
ever asked me how I got to this point. And that's very important because if you want to make a fair judgment, you have to understand what other people's processes are, like in a court of law.
Mm-hmm.
Like the judge should not just make a judgment. The judge would listen to everybody's. In fact, the judge doesn't say anything, right? The judge just sits and listens to people present their information. Never tells people what to do. You might that's not the judge's job. The judge's job is to listen and absorb the information. And if someone is not absorbing the information, there's no way they can make a correct judgment about what is happening. So I think that most people forget that, especially with kids. People want to dictate to kids everything that kids do. But my experience is that to understand children, you have to listen to them, not tell them what to do. Because if they're doing something wrong, before you can correct it, you have to understand why they did that thing. So you don't just dictate to them, hey, this is wrong. You say, okay, you did that. Tell me why you did that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And where did you learn? Where did you learn that that was okay? What was your thought process? What was your strategy? Did you have a plan? And where would you go if you wanted a plan? Where would you go if you want help about that? And then understand what put the person in that position to make that choice. And then you can maybe give some counseling or some advice if they ask for advice. You can say, would you like some advice about that? And if they say no, you say, okay, I can understand you don't trust authority. I can understand you have a negative experience with that in the past. Just remember that not all authority is negative, and that the door is always open if people want advice. So there's almost an automatic reaction in modern society that children are bad and should be corrected. It doesn't get easier as you get older. It gets more difficult. See, that's one of those paradoxes or contradictions. You think that with more experience and more time, things should get easier, but it doesn't. It doesn't work that way because the challenges get progressively more difficult
Mm-hmm.
as a person gets older. So it doesn't ever become any easier, which is why we need the constant reevaluation and upgrade of personal skills. Because we never we never get, I think, to any point where we realize we know everything. You see it in the martial arts where like the karate or the taekwondo or whatever, kung fu or whatever it is people are doing,
Mm-hmm.
where there's no end to the level of mastery. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
end. There's always another level to get to. You get your black belt, but the black belt's just really the beginning of your learning. You see it when you're starting, you think black belt is I've got my black belt, I'm the best. But no, black belt is just you begin the process of understanding the next level, and you get through your first dan, second dan, third dan, and you keep going and keep going and keep going, and there's there's ever more progressive levels of achievement to reach. And life essentially is a revolution. But the birth-death cycle is a revolution. It's 360 degrees. Yeah, it's a full circle. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
want to achieve in our lives, a full circle. And if you consider a full circle is 360 degrees. It's 360 degrees. And this is a holistic process. And the whole world is basically designed around mathematical concepts, our whole world. That's why we have 365 days in a year. Originally it was 360, but they couldn't quite get it into the universal perspective because the universe is slightly out of sync, right? Things are perfectly imperfect in the universe. And that's why when you finish university, what do you get when you finish university? You get a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And the piece of paper is called a degree. The piece of paper is called a degree. So when you finish university age, I don't know, 23, 24, 25, whatever, you get one degree. You get one degree. But to be a complete person, you need 360 degrees. So you've still got a long way to go and travel. And in the esoterica of life, there are more complex degrees that people can get at different times in different places. So if you look at higher levels of government and organizations, these people spend a lot of time in educational institutions getting extra degrees so that they can rise to higher levels. So what's the point? Learning never ends. That's the point. Learning never ends. There's there's something that I learn every day which makes my mind go, wow. And it might not be because I'm studying. It might be I learn it from my kids. Because my children are constant reminders of the mistakes that I make. It's like my mother said to me. She said, oh, it's it's what did she say? Children should never criticize. A son should never criticize his father. That's what my mother said to me. A son should never, and I was like, no, 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 no. That's so wrong. A son should always criticize his father because this shows a critical thinking mindset, and you can't get better. You can't get better if your client is not giving you feedback.
Mhm.
And in the parent-child relationship, the parent is the business providing the service to the child, and the child is the
Mhm.
client. So if my children are not giving me feedback on my performance, and children give constant feedback all the time, they give constant feedback. Everything is feedback, right?
Yes, positive or negative. Yes.
Yeah, everything is feedback. So my children are constantly giving me feedback on my performance, which allows me to reflect and try to become better and realize my own mistakes and try to take try to take little steps forward. And this is why I feel sorry for my oldest child because they got all the mistakes first. Right, and they got everything that I got wrong with the first kid,
Mm.
and hopefully with the other children, it got progressively a little bit better. But uh, it's still it's still a question of how well am I able to manage myself. Because what I wanted to say earlier was I have a speech um, on my YouTube channel, which is the kids are always all right. It's the parents that have the problems. The kids in
Mm.
general are always okay. It's the parent. When children display negative characteristics, it's a result of what they've learned they should do
From their parents, of course.
from their parents. Yeah. Uh, and so uh, so we all know that children should be able to express themselves. The trouble is that children very often express their parents,
Mm.
and that's uh, that's an understandable issue because parents need to uh, need to not print themselves too much on uh, on the characteristics of the children. A little bit is inevitable, but what do we want? We want the students to become better than the masters. It's the ultimate aim of all education. The children should outgrow their uh, their need for their parents. Their skills should develop further. They should uh, they should be able to grow and go further. And hopefully, in the modern world, there's enough tools for them to do that with or without their parents, which is why their it's why the parents need to take a step back, basically, sometimes, and why the parents need to focus very carefully on what it is that they do, because if the parents do something wrong, the children will look elsewhere and they'll just stop listening, and that that's a difficult bridge to repair once that bridge is burned.
Mm. It's dangerous, yes.
It is essentially. It is essentially. It's very hard uh, to correct those mistakes. Um, and I think that's if we put in enough work as parents, it is possible to make sure that the door is always open and the opportunities are always there. Um, that's my opinion anyway. Um,